Henry, let's talk a little bit about conflict of interest. When you go in and advise these companies, talk to us about the possibility of conflict of interest, how often you see it, and why it happens.
Well, in the restructuring business, conflicts of interest are rampant, and it'll occur on the legal side, on the financial advisory side. It'll occur out of court, and it's going to occur in court. And the primary issue that we see is that if a financial advisor, for example, undertakes a debtor side assignment representing the company, and that very same financial advisor does most of his or her work with bondholders, say, well, that financial advisor may not be incented and probably is not incented to be as aggressive as he or she could on the company's behalf.
So would you say then typically these conflicts are intentional?
Well, they certainly go in knowing it, and some of the red flags involved if you're a director, for example, is you're going to want to know of the players in your case who the financial advisor or lawyer or their firms have represented in the past that are holding your company's paper. And the red flag is if there are substantial conflicts, you probably want to look further for professional advice.
How do you avoid them in the first place?
Well, our firm has had a policy for decades to avoid bondholder representation. And so we are not in the position where some bondholder is going to be able to call us up in the middle of the night and say, you'll never work for me again unless you act a little bit more gently to me. Well, they can't do that to us because we don't represent them in the first place, so there's no threat that could be lodged against us, real or implied.
You've touched on this a little bit. Is there a right way and a wrong way as a CEO or chief of a company to handle this when you notice this is happening?
Yeah, I think that you need to find advisors who are going to be firmly in your court and are going to work aggressively on your behalf to come up with options. You as a CEO are going to be the ultimate decision maker, but you need people who can come up with options and then work with you to implement those options through aggressive negotiations if that's what it takes. And on the other hand, if you're a CEO and you hear some phrase like, oh, we can represent you better than the other guy because we know those bondholders really well and we work for them all the time, that's when the CEO should put on his track shoes and just run away.
What if the damage is so widespread, it's big collateral damage, and you're a big company and this is going to head out into the media? As the head of a corporation, how do you handle it best?
In terms of the adverse publicity from a restructuring?
Exactly. Right.
I think that there are standard playbooks as to what to do, and it truly depends upon the facts and circumstances of the given situation. If you're already in a fishbowl, given you're a public company or something else, you probably need to be out there in front with the disclosure. On the other hand, if you're a private company dealing with a small group of banks, you can probably not disclose very much. It's going to depend.